Welcome into House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Vic the producer, and joining me as always is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. And Gilbert, it took a while for us to get back on here. We've had technical difficulties. We've had a couple of things happen to our cats, so we're happy to be back on House of Horns here. Gilbert, how have you been, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing well. As you mentioned, we've had some cat issues.
Yeah,
Cats going to the doctors and cats having I don't know where episodes. I'll leave it at that. I don't know how
yeah,
much information you want to share about the cats right now, Victor. But they're both doing well. So we're back here on House of Horns, and that's not the only reason. I've been on the road for the past week. You're on vacation, so if you're
right.
wondering, where has Vic and Gil been the last couple of weeks? Because it is training camp. You're right. You want to call us out for not being on here? That's fair. It is training camp. But I did make it out to one training camp visit at LMU. I am planning on being at the scrimmage in the Oxnard. Oh, what a far drive from Orange County to Oxnard. But it's Cowboys versus Rams. And that's the real preseason, Victor, not this crap on Saturday. No, just kidding. If you're trying to make the roster, that's also very important too, as well as preseason opener. But a lot to get into because the quarterback is not practicing. Maybe that's why we haven't been around because the quarterback
Yeah.
ain't there. We've been waiting for Matthew Stafford to show up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on with the Rams, as you said. You were at training camp. I think it was what, like the third or fourth day of training camp, and
Yeah.
we were supposed to be there yesterday too. But like I said, we ran into some emergencies, and then even getting on here right before we hopped on, we had an emergency as well. So, just we'll in this episode we will recap Gilberto's Rams training camp visit. We'll also go over some of the training camp standouts. There's been some names that I've been intrigued by, Gilbert, that I can't wait to talk to you about. And of course, we'll get into the big story out of Rams camp, and that is Matthew Stafford's back issue. So, but before we get to all that, Gilbert, I want to put this out to all the Rams fans out there. I want to know which newcomer will have the biggest impact this season because there's a lot of guys who are being depended on, especially if the quarterback isn't ready to go week one. There's some guys to choose from here: Devontae Adams, Nathan Landman, Terrence Ferguson, the rookie tight end, Puna Ford, the defensive tackle, and the rookie that's it seems like we keep hearing this every season now since we've been doing House of Horns during training camp, Gilbert. There's always one player that kind of stands out during training camp, and this time it's Canota Munfield, the seventh round pick out of Pittsburgh, Gilbert. So that's another name to add to the list here. So just let us know which newcomer will have the biggest impact this season. But out of those names, Gilbert, just give me a name that you think will have a big impact.
Yeah, obviously some of the easy ones like Devontae Adams or Puna Ford, and you could go with the second round rookie tight end and Terrence Ferguson. But as you mentioned, this team has a track record of finding either a very good wide receiver in the preseason that does nothing, or a very good wide receiver that becomes a star like Puka Nakua. And I'm really blanking on the guy's name from 2022. I think he either played at Montana or Idaho
Oh
or something.
yes,
Lance,
and
I forget. I'm
yes,
blanking. But you go from like him, well, I figured out his name eventually. Puka
right.
Nakua, Jordy Whittington was kind of that breakout last year. Obviously they didn't go on the Puka Nakua trajectory, but still reliable. And then now it feels like Mumfield might be the guy. Again, we don't know. Maybe he's in between Jordan Whittington and Puka Nakua, or he's going to be the next star. Who knows? Because this team is weird. They sometimes they sign Allen Robinson, it doesn't work out. Sometimes we draft two at one second round. It hasn't really worked out, but he got another contract. But then
Yep.
you find Puka Nakua. So, this team has a way of finding gems and the situations that are not obvious or predictable. They tend to do it. So it's a good question, Victor, because they have that track record of finding stars. And I don't want to go with an easy one. So why not? I'll roll the dice on Munfield and maybe does something the seventh round pick. And I want to say a lot of the draft experts, because that period of the draft, the seventh round, like everybody's tired, everybody's fatigued, nobody gives a crap. But then you get one pick in the seventh round where the analysts get excited. And I remember people were very excited about his draft selection. So maybe he is a player.
Yeah, and I think for me it's I feel like they might have found, you know, I just blanked on his name, and he just went all pro for the Eagles last year.
Oh, Zach Vaughn.
Huh?
Zach.
Zach Vaughn. I don't know why I just blanked, but Nathan Landman. I mean, a guy who was a special teams guy with the Falcons. He got a little bit of a run there um with the Falcons, and now I mean he's been the green dot there for the Rams during training camp, and all I've heard is just great reviews from everybody, all the beat reporters there. So it's been great to hear some of the positive things, especially right now with no Matthew Stafford there. It seems like the defense has pretty much been the talk of training camp because I think we'll get into it, but it feels like they're going to be the ones that are going to have to do the heavy lifting at least at
Yeah.
the beginning of the season, Gilbert.
Yeah, and by the way, Lance McCutcheon was the guy I was thinking about. So Lance McCutcheon was 2022, Puka Nacua 23,
And he
24.
made the roster too.
Yeah, I think he got waived and early on became on the practice squad, and he's been bouncing around the practice squad. So it's kind of like that 22 to 23, they got the best of both worlds, where a guy was a preseason gem, but they didn't really do anything. That's usually what happens in situations like that. And then Puka Nacua, that rare territory, you become a star, and then Whittington, been reliable. Maybe he does something in a year or two, and then Munfield, and then yeah, like you mentioned, Victor. Sometimes you find these veteran gems that people maybe are not using properly somewhere else, or it just doesn't work out, and maybe you're more than just a special teams player. And I know Nate Landman, I guess, knows the scheme very well because he was with Raheem Morris, right, in
Yep,
Atlanta. So maybe that's why
exactly.
you pick him up. He fits in right away, and you do have a need at linebacker, and you need to be a little more physical. You need guys to play faster, especially within the running game. If you're over there overthinking and you don't know how to adjust and trust your instincts, then you're gonna get gashed. I'll mention it again. Saquon Barkley, 2 games last year they got gashed. So if he does something where he's playing fast and has good instincts and he knows the scheme, hey, why not? Maybe he does something.
Yeah, and I mean we see this a lot in the NFL every year. Like during the off season, you hear about a guy like you're like, oh, that like an unknown signing, and then they have a big impact. And so far that I mean, all I keep hearing about is how great he's been, especially reading the runs. Like he
That's
they
perfect.
the and that's the other. We'll get into it. I don't want to get too far into it. I do want to get to a comment here from Angel, who's a supporter of all three of our channels. So shout out to Angel. He's like, "What up, compa?" So
What's up,
what's
sir?
up, Angel? Good to hear
Appreciate
from
the
you as
support.
always.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, let's get to Rams news and notes plus the injury report so far. So we're getting closer to that time, Gilbert. We're starting to get some news and notes, and of course the injury report. We've already had a couple of injuries, but none bigger than than Matthew Stafford. He remains week to week, according to Sean McVay. Stafford saw a specialist, Dr. Robert Watkins, for what sounds like was a follow up after seeing him at the start of camp. And I guess the big thing with him right now is from what McVay said is that we won't see him tomorrow at Cowboys and Rams joint practice, which you will be there.
Yeah.
So you'll get a lot of Jimmy G, a lot of what's his name? Just the third
Stetson
string
Bennett.
quarterback. Huh?
Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett, yes, who's had a really good camp. I've heard a lot of good things about him, but you don't want to use your third string quarterback if you don't have to. And then Gilbert, as 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 we know with the Rams, they don't play none of their players during the preseason, but the joint practices are very important for this coaching staff. They like to be able to evaluate all their players, to see the progress of the rookies and kind of see where your offense, your defense, and your special teams are at that going into the season. And then just a last update that we got from McVay said, just to quote him, says it's static throwing. It's some of the unloaded running on the treadmill. Sometimes it might be even walking. He's able to do a little bit of lighter cardio and able to do some good core work. It's more just functional strength surrounding the area while making sure that you don't do anything to say you're back based on trajectory and that that's what he's doing. And when I read that, Gilbert, I started thinking about some of the rehabs that I've gone through with some of my surgeries, and to me, the first thing that popped in my head is, wait, did he have back surgery and we didn't hear about it, or am I making too much of this? So, I how concerning is Stafford's back issue, and is it going to linger into the season? Do you think?
I'm gonna trust and believe the team that it's not back surgery because Sean McVay came out early on saying he'll be back in a week. Like we'll get him in a week. It's just rest and it's back stiffness, and like he wouldn't have labeled that. Like I know coaches and GMs don't always tell the truth, but something where he's gonna be out for a while, you kind of just get it over with. Yeah, he has surgery. It is what it is. So maybe the thing is like they just can't really figure it out. Like we saw that report. I think it was from Yahoo that said he got hurt on vacation. So that's always the tricky part. It's like okay, so you weren't even hurt at the facility. This happened on vacation away. Like sometimes maybe Stafford is just saying, you know what, I'm fine, I'm fine. You don't know the full story because he wants to practice and he wants to be out there and he doesn't want this vacation injury to be a thing and be a story. So I don't know, maybe the first week he reports and it's like, yeah, it's not a big deal, and it actually becomes a big deal, or more like, or okay, honestly, be like, you know what, dude, you've been in the system for a while. Like, let's just take it easy and have you roll out for week one. I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be that positive, but there's somewhere in the middle where it is pretty concerning, where like the team is pretty pissed off probably about this injury that happened away during vacation. And I don't want to say I don't want to jump the gun just yet, but it just seems like all signs are pointing to this being the final year of Matthew Stafford, regardless if he plays or not. I think he will play eventually, but things like that, they linger in the back of your mind if you're Les Snead and Sean McVay. Okay, that's enough. Like we got to move on. We got to get younger. We need a new quarterback. We have an extra first round pick, so that's for the future. I think that's all leading up to the final year for Matthew Stafford. But you're all in this year. You got Devontae Adams. You draft Poona Ford. You're thinking about paying Kyron Williams. Like you got a good defensive front that's young and emerging. So you want this to work out. Jimmy G is a decent backup. Maybe you hold it down for a month for maybe best case, worst case scenario where he's out for a month, but he's ready to go for that. That's where I kind of feel like we might be headed. Maybe it's better than that. Who knows, Vic? Again, it's all very strange and hard to figure out, but you could survive a month if it is Jimmy G. Like we talked about, they have a very good defense. So I think to me, even if it's that, it's not the end of the world. But we've been talking about all off season. I know we haven't been on much this off season, but when we do get on
Right.
here, Vic, what do we always say? This team has to get to a good start to finally be a Super Bowl contender. If they're doing the same crap as it did in 23 and 24, they'll probably still be a playoff team, but they won't be a dangerous playoff team. Maybe they'll be one and done, maybe a divisional round. But it seems like they need one of these years where like they're dominant the regular season and show out in the playoffs. But it kind of feels like we're heading for another very slow start for this team.
Yeah, and I've kind of gotten to the point now, Gilbert, just listening and hearing all the updates from McVay, to where if I'm them, especially with the way the schedule kind of starts out, like the first 5 games, I'd be okay with starting Jimmy G for the first 5 games, just making sure that he's okay. Like you're not going anywhere without Matthew Stafford. You're not a Super Bowl contender if you don't have him. As you said, you might go and win the division, but you're not going to beat any of these, top tier echelon teams in the NFC. And that's part of the issue here, is that it's been kind of cryptic and not knowing, and I guess that's been kind of the thing with the Rams too. They're really good at doing this, because I started thinking about the whole Cooper Cup situation. Remember when he hurt his knee, and then we didn't know what was going on, and then next thing you knew, they put him on IR, and then he missed the first 4 games of the season, and then he was back, and you knew the writing was the writing was on the wall there for Cooper Cup. So I think you're right. I think this is the last year of Matthew Stafford, but if you're gonna squeeze the most out of him, I just feel like at this point, just give uh Jimmy G most of the reps during the joint practices, see where you're at, and then like I said, the schedule is pretty favorable to open the season. I think it's like when we first looked at it, they could have gone 4-1 to start the season. So if you start 3-2, at least you're over 500, and you do so with Jimmy G, who's a very, he's led a team to the Super Bowl. So at least you have a formidable backup. I don't know where he is in your backup rankings, Gilbert, but I'm sure he's at least a top five guy, right?
Oh yeah, he's I think he's top 3. Well, he might be number 2, but by default it's Kirk Cousins because
Right.
he kind of got screwed over in Atlanta, but he's still a backup. So Kirk Cousins number 1. I want to say I think I had Jimmy G number 2. So he's reliable. He's been to a Super Bowl. He won a lot. Like if the scheme works, like he's good enough. Like it's just he's older now. We haven't really seen a full year of Jimmy G. They tried it with the Raiders and it didn't look that good. But I was also the Raiders. So maybe it's a 2-part thing for him. But going back to another, positive from a potential worst case scenario, and that meaning Stafford not playing for like the first quarter of the season. The good thing was Stafford and Devontae got a lot of work in together in the offseason. Devontae was around the offseason. Stafford was around the offseason. So the offseason workouts could maybe pay off when he comes back in September. Again, we're just kind of talking about worst case scenario that
Yep.
he's going to miss some games. But if that's the case, they have some chemistry. They've worked together. They're probably talking all the time on the phone. They've already got the work on the field. And Stafford and Devontae don't need to be on the field in training camp. These are veterans. They know how to play. So maybe from that standpoint, they'll be fine. But that's kind of the only new piece that Stafford needs to be on the field for is Devontae. Everything else he pretty much knows.
Yep.
Similar offensive line. Even the center is coming back and Coleman Shelton. So from
Yep.
that standpoint, it should be an easy ramp up period for him.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I've even heard the last couple of days that Devonte Adams is also kind of like coaching some of the receivers, and so he's pretty intact with he's already has I guess caught up to what the playbook is for Sean McVay. So if you're hearing that from Devonte Adams already, so it's just pretty much like you said, they had that during mini camp and some of the offseason workouts. So now it's pretty much just doing it on in a live game. So we'll see what happens. You're just hoping for the best here with the Stafford, and I if I'm the Rams, like I said, I just try to steer. We know how they are with this. They're gonna take their time, and when he's ready, he's gonna be out there. Otherwise, they're not gonna put him out in harm's way. And part of it too, Gilbert, as we talked about, is that it just feels like the next kid because he's taking so many. We People forget that he took a pounding with the Lions when he was
Yeah.
there. That there's a hit that might come and that might be the end for him. So that's kind of why the Rams were also hesitant to kind of give him a
Yeah.
multi-year contract. They were
They
like,
saw it in
what?
22 as well. The
Yeah,
1 year after or months after they paid him after the Super Bowl. So they know from personal
yeah,
experience.
yeah. And we have a couple questions here before we move on. I wanted to make sure we've been away, so I want to make sure we get everybody involved here. ESG says it's Dallas doesn't sign Micah Parsons. The Rams are on the list of interesting things. Any thoughts?
Yeah, obviously the Rams are always on the list here because of the way they operated when before they won that Super Bowl. They were all in, but I think Les Snead and Sean McVay are committed to being younger and then being pretty smart and efficient with the salary cap. Like keep in mind, you still got to pay Puka Nakua. That's going to come up. You're going to eventually have to pay Jared Verse too. Like you could already start counting the money for him. He's going to be a real player. Kobe Turner is going to be due soon. You also got to pay Kyron Williams. I think they're going to work it out. And so all these guys that were good the last couple of years, they're going to be due. So to me, obviously, you always want to have a Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons next to Jared Verse would be really nice. But I really think Les Snead is very committed to getting younger and having cheaper contracts and having guys that he developed and they were homegrown. Like I keep going back to the like there's a reason he wanted that second round pick. Like, the more picks that you add, I think that's the way he wants. That's the philosophy that he's going off of. Like he could easily draft to somebody else in the first round this year, and he said, "No, give me more draft picks." So to me, that tells me they're operating differently. So, and then if you sign, I get Stafford is not really on the books for the future, so you could afford to sign somebody like Michael Parsons, but that money, man, what the highest paid non-quarterback in the league, it really adds up. And how would you pay Puka and Jerry Verse and everybody else I just mentioned too?
Yeah, and I think part of it too is as much as you would love to see it, and like the whole F them picks thing too, you know, there's a reason why the Rams have the cheapest defensive roster in the league for,
Mhm.
as you said, they're gonna commit money into the offense, but and now that they're able to draft well, like one of the things we keep coming back to is linebackers, right? They just went out and signed a guy off the, who I guess was a special teams guy with Atlanta, and now he's their green dot. So it just
Yeah.
tells you how they're not gonna prioritize overspending for someone like Micah Parsons. Now, I get it. Like you also look at the history with Les Need, and he went out and got Von Miller, but Von Miller didn't cost what's gonna cost to go and get Micah Parsons,
Oh,
and
it's probably
so
multiple first round picks.
yeah,
You need
I
a
mean, and I
quarterback
know the
for the
Rams
future.
have those, but would you rather have another defensive end like Micah Parsons, or would you want to load up and perhaps get Arch Manning if he's available, or
Yeah.
any of the top quarterbacks coming out next season? I'd rather have a quarterback ready to go, especially
Yeah.
with what's going on with Matthew Stafford. So I get it. Like all the other 31 teams would love to have Micah Parsons, but there's a lot that's going to cost you. So you also have to keep that in mind. But I wouldn't put it past the Rams. Honestly, it could happen because Lesney, we've seen him be able to do it in the past. But
Yeah. Maybe as a rental,
as a rental, yeah, we'll see.
but it's just it
One
will
more
cost
he
too many first round picks, I feel like.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. Uh, Daniel Calderon says, "Hi, am I the only one super concerned about Stafford's back?" I think we're all concerned.
Yeah. I'm with
Yeah,
you, Daniel. This is not something that he'll be fine. That's why we're talking about worst case scenario, him missing 4 to 5 games, and that
yeah,
definitely is that's a problem for a lot of teams. If your starting quarterback is out for the first month, but on the positive side, this team is built to like win games in different ways.
yeah. And that's the good thing, and we'll get to that. Right now, let me make sure I have all my banners on here. So I'm producing and going as here we go. All right, Gilbert, just continue on with news and notes. Aaron Donald was at practice on Saturday. I thought the cool thing that I noticed about him is he was in his uniform pants, and then he had like his little shirt. But that was cool to see. It's always then you get the whole speculation: is he coming back? We won't see him again. But it's cool to see him out there. I can't wait to see. I know they're gonna retire his. I think it's gonna be a slow process about how they honor him. I'm sure they'll do the retiring of the jersey. They'll do the Ring of Honor 1 year, and then little by little until he gets into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and maybe even a statue. Who knows?
Oh yeah,
So yeah, they're gonna definitely slow play this, and I'm thinking just give the guy everything already, like he's earned it. But
yeah,
you do want your name out there for a while, and he's actually had a very nice connection with Jared Verse. I do enjoy their workouts together, their interactions, and Aaron Donald trying to set the tone for Jared Verse. Like it's funny because obviously Jared Verse is in tip top shape, and he's a monster in the field. But when you put the jokes aside, like you could rely on your athleticism for only so long. Like I don't know,
yep,
4 or 5 years for guys in the NFL. Like what made Aaron Donald great not only was being athletic, but it was just the extra work that he put in, perfecting the craft and being fundamentally sound. So I think maybe for Jared Verse to see that up close, like okay, there's a lot more to it than just me being a bulldozer here because obviously Jared Verse just played off like some superior strength off of his rookie year, and he was just a menace in the trenches. But there's tape out there now. Year two, what can you do differently? People are prepared. They know your game now. They know you're going to be a bull rusher, but what can you do differently? So I know they were different positions, defensive tackle and edge rusher, but Aaron Donald, if he wanted to, he was playing. I bet if he played on the edge for full time, he'd probably rack up 10 sacks if he wanted to. So there's
yep.
plenty to learn there, and I think that storyline could be beneficial. I know they're joking around a lot right now, uh, but it's something that could really pay in the long run for Jared Verse.
Yeah, and it's really cool to kind of see the passing of the torch. You usually don't get to see that, and usually like the players on that's on the way out, he's like, oh, I'm not gonna come back anyways. But he retired, and he's kind of giving back to the organization. So that's pretty cool. And then have that relationship with Jared Burrs. And I know we'll get into it later in a couple of weeks, Gilbert, but I do like the odds of Jared Verse as a defensive player of the year candidate. I think he's 16-1 right now. I like those odds
Wow.
for him, especially if the Rams are going to rely on their defense to win some games this season.
Yeah, my pick would either be like Jared Verse or Will Anderson Jr. I think Will Anderson Jr. is definitely a star in the making. Maybe even like a Jalen Carter, but I don't know how many. Well, Aaron Donald won Defensive Player of the Year as a
Oh yeah,
defensive tackle, but defensive tackles don't get a lot of love. But in today's NFL, it's very different. But if we had to like rank maybe like the best defenders under 25, like it would be like Jalen Carter, Will Anderson Jr., and Jared Verse. So definitely top three. And actually, if you read my story at Sports Illustrated, I ranked uh, the best teams have the best under 25 talent, and the Texans were on it, the Rams were on it, and the Eagles were on it. So no surprise there because
yep.
the three guys I mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna, you have a lot of young talent there, and I can't wait to see. It'll be interesting for that defensive player of the year race. I was a little bit shocked that PS2 won it, but honestly, like if you look at him,
Mhm.
if you're a Denver Broncos fan, or if you really studied the Broncos last season, they were really a really good defensive team, and it's
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of it had to do with him. And it's been a while since we've seen a corner win defensive player of the year, so but
yeah.
usually it's the edge rushers. So
Yeah, it kind of felt like there wasn't a guy who really dominated from the edge position. So it's kind of like, hey, why not? This might be the year to give it a cornerback, and I was okay with that.
yeah, and talking about cornerbacks, Emmanuel Forbes Jr. has a hamstring injury and is expected in his 1 to 2 weeks. Cam Curl was stepped on, so he's week to week. And then we finally got to see Rams rookie linebacker Pook. They're going there. It's Chris Paul, but in order for people to kind of distinguish, because as an NBA player, he's going by Poop Paul. So he was in pads for the first time in camp after dealing with a calf injury. And the other big injury news, Gilbert, that we really haven't talked about, we haven't, you know, because it's been overshadowed by Stafford, is Alaric Jackson has been at Rams camp participating in some team activities, but for the most part has been limited to individual drills. I've been kind of listening around to some of the beat reporters, and it's starting to sound like they expect him to be ready to go just because he's dealt with this before. The
Yeah,
fact that it happened early in during mini camp, they feel like he'll be ready, especially if you look at some of the other guys who any other NFL football players who have dealt with blood clots, but it sounds like he's dealt with them before, so he knows how to go about it. And it just sounds like he should, he on the positive, he should be ready to go for week 1.
yeah, you got to have him. You cannot go into week one without your starting quarterback and your starting left tackle. That could be a major problem for this team. So if he's ready to go, that's great. Yeah, when I was out there in training camp, the first week they were there, he was there participating in individual drills, but I don't think he's done much in team drills. So maybe that's the part of the process to kind of ease them up into it, and then maybe now that they're done with this training camp phase and they can focus more on the scrimmages and the preseason, maybe he does a little more. We are still a month away actually to the season, so they got time to work it out. And like you mentioned, Victor, he has dealt with blood clots in the past and he's played with it, and he actually went from an undrafted player to in dealing with the blood clots to actually being a very quality starting left tackle in the league, and he got a nice contract this offseason. So he's definitely worked his way up. He knows how to do it.
Yeah, and so I think that's some positive news in terms of some of the injuries. Before we move on to kind of get your thoughts on training camp here, we have Jorge Rodriguez who says Gilberto, and then I think he wanted to
Jorge.
kind of he wanted to do the whole Gilberto Manzano thing. So
Yeah, the
shout out
Dan
to you,
Diego.
Jorge. Thanks for checking in with us. So it's been kind of cool seeing everybody jump on here. We have Michael Armenta, House of Horns regulars. He's what's up, fellas? I'm concerned about Stafford. I'm also glad we have Jimmy G.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those times where you're really glad that you invested some money in the backup position. And it was smart from the Rams because you do have an older quarterback and one that's had some injuries in the past. So yeah, I think Jimmy G might have been a free agent. I forget, Victor. So they
Yep,
paid
he
him to come
resigned.
back. Yeah, you couldn't rely on Stetson Bennett, so to pay him, I think that was worth the money. And again, we just haven't seen Jimmy G be a quality starter in a few years. It did not work out for him with the Raiders, but what was the last time? 2022, before he got hurt when Brock Purdy took over. So it's been a minute.
Yep, and he's a proven veteran out there. So, I mean, as you said, he's number 2 or 3 in your backup quarterback ranking. So it's a good player to have on your team for sure. Especially if there is if you have Stafford miss any time at the beginning of the season. All right, Gilbert. You were at Rams camp last week. Was it last week or the week before? It was last week. It was on Tuesday, right? Last
Maybe
Tuesday.
the week before. I'm already losing track too.
Yeah, it's been a while. All these days, you've been at a bunch of training camps. So, just off the top, just give me just your takeaways before I ask you about what players kind of stood out. I know there wasn't a lot going on that day when you went, but just talking to people, what's been your impressions of this team, and outside of the
Yeah.
whole injury concern with Stafford.
Yeah, I think people have been excited about what Puna Ford has brought to the table. And I was talking to Adam Grossbart. He's a Orange County registered beat reporter for covering the Rams, and he said they're trying to use him more as a pass rusher. And I'm like, oh, I thought Puna Ford was just brought in to help the run defense. And he was saying they've been talking him up more to add him more as a pass rusher. And it's strange with this team because I've been pretty critical of the young defensive tackles like Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner. Like they're great pass rushers, but they got their butts whooped against the run, and you need people to help you against the run. That's why I thought they brought Puna Ford in. So uh, it's a good thing when you're just not a specialist. And I know Puna Ford, his career, he's been more of a run stopper. He was good in Seattle. He was good with the Chargers too as well. So if you can focus on that's really what they need. But if you can add a little more, that's fine too. So to me, I don't know if it's just camp talk and people are just trying to find more positives for the newcomer. But if you can stop the run, that's all you need. You need this on this team. So the more he offers, the better. So, but to hear all the good things about Puna Ford right away, uh, that's been pretty good to hear. Another thing that stood out just because of the hair, Kevin Dotson having
Oh yeah,
the blue hair with the gold horns in the hair. I'm like, wow, okay, this guy he likes being a Ram. I remember when he was a throw-in the trade, right, or with the
yep,
Steelers out of
with the
nowhere. So
Steelers, yeah.
and he got paid, and it's been a pretty reliable Ram player. So now he's committed with the hair. So yeah, and you mentioned Alaric Jackson. That's my other one. I'm like, when I saw him on the field, I'm like, okay, that's good. He's on the field. Jackson is on the field. And I'll keep sticking with the big men. Coleman Shelton. I asked Adam Grossbart about that one. I'm like, man, he was. I told him like he wasn't good in Chicago. Why is he back? And we started breaking it down. He got me thinking more about it. I'm like, honestly, like I should probably put more blame on Caleb Williams for Coleman Shelton
Yeah.
just regressing so bad last year because you do have a rookie who has to learn all the calls, and you have to get on the same page with the rookie. And I'm not saying Coleman Shelton was not at fault, but when you have a rookie who likes to do a little too much and likes to work away from the pocket, and it's not very structured, and it's a lot of off scripted plays, and maybe that could create a little miscommunication there, and also a rookie who holds the ball a little too long, and that could lead to more sacks, and then the offensive line takes a hit there too for like 68 sacks is a lot, and you're not blaming the quarterback, you're blaming the O line, but part of it is the quarterback, maybe the play caller, maybe the scheme wasn't a good fit there, and Adam was telling me, yeah, he knows the scheme here. It's a better fit here. He was great in 22. He was great in 23, and he left to Chicago in 24. So he might be an upgrade than over Bo Limmer, who was kind of thrown into the fire last year, a
Yep.
rookie 6th-round pick. And like we mentioned, Coleman Shelton knows Matthew Stafford too as well. So I think having him in the middle could benefit. And then the other part too, sticking with the O line, I think the Steve Avila experiment at center is just it's done with. I think they tried that.
Yeah.
They don't like it. Obviously, was Bo Limmer played at center last year. That tells you everything. And I asked Adam about that too, and he's like, "That's it." So I think we know our starting five now for the Rams. It's Alaric Jackson left tackle, Steve Avila left guard, Coleman Shelton center, Kevin Dotson right guard, and then Rob Havenstein the right tackle. He was out there practicing too, and I'm like, okay. And I know it was a chill day, but he was out there. And so
Yeah.
on the field, he wasn't one of the veterans who got the day off. So I think to me that tells me he wants to get as much work as he can because the offseason was a little shaky for him, not being available. You don't want to be too rusty. So I think that for the starting five, it's a lot of positive news there. And then the other side of the trenches, having Puna Ford to help out the running game is a big positive. And then you mentioned Nate Landman in the middle of that defense. So a lot of positives for areas that I was very concerned about going into training camp. Obviously, the quarterback is the biggest concern here, but to see the O line okay, the run defense is coming into shape, and you got two guys in Puna Ford and Nate Landman, that's all pretty good here.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought the other thing that's been kind of interesting about this team too is they're cross training the backups too, so you're not caught off guard. We saw Joe Noteboom be really bad at all the positions that he
Yeah.
played, so it was good that a lot of the guys that they brought in, you know, it's been refreshing just to have those guys be able to move around whenever there's an injury because injuries are going to happen. I think I forget who was there was one team. I think it was the Buffalo Bills were the only team I think that didn't have an injury along their offensive line last year, which
Wow.
is pretty incredible. So yeah, if you're not everybody's that lucky, so you need to be able to cross train some of your linemen, especially with the CBA and everything. So that's been another thing that the Rams have been doing really well. And as you talked about, my biggest thing too was been the linebackers, whether it's been Spites, we mess up his
Yeah.
name,
Spates. Yeah.
Omar Spates. Omar Spates. There we go. When you say the whole name, it just flows. There we go. Uh Landman. And so with Landman, it just fits. Like last time I still don't understand the whole Ernest Jones trade to this day, Gilbert. But having someone at the middle linebacker be the green dot instead of, and all credit to Quinn Lake for doing that last season, but you shouldn't have your safety or your corner be your green dot, and so that's been kind of good to see as well. And then in terms of some of the players you mentioned that have stood out, I've heard like we mentioned at the top of the show, wide receiver Kanata Munfield, the 7th round pick out of Pittsburgh. Jalen McCullough, the safety, he's been kind of. It sounds like he's been playing a little bit down in the box. Gilbert, they've been moving him around. They've been really impressed with him. He had a bunch of interceptions once he got inserted into the lineup. We talked about Nate Landman, the linebacker. Wide receiver Xavier Smith has been another name that just
Yeah.
keeps. It sounds like he's going to make the team as well. And then of course Jordan Whittington looking to kind of take that next step forward now. We had high hopes for him. He kind of was like the standout of the last training camp last year. So I think that's another name that I keep hearing a lot of. So I can um it'll be interesting, Gilbert. I don't know if you got to talk to him. Maybe you can ask this tomorrow when you're there. But I'm interested to know what the third wide receiver battle is going to be, and who's in the lead right now. Is it Jordan Whittington? Is it Kanata Munfield? Um, is it none of those guys? Is it someone else? I'm really interested to find out what information you're able to gather
It's
on
like
that
we're
because
refusing to accept Tutu Atwell as a guy.
oh no, we both are out on Tutu Atwell.
Yeah.
Good for
They
him
always put
for
him out there though, in 11 personnel. He's always the third guy. I think he just
yeah.
fits the role that they want, and maybe at some point we gotta believe it. But I'm with you. Maybe the games are gonna come around, and he's gonna get 5, 10 snaps and one catch, and then like we're done with this guy. And like everybody you mentioned, maybe it's one of these guys. So if you're the fourth guy, maybe you're really the third guy. So, uh,
Yeah.
but it's just tough to not believe it because they paid this guy $10 million. I'm like maybe they are gonna play him. I don't know, but it is such a unique thing because he hasn't done much, and he got a second contract from the team. So maybe we just believe the money. I don't know, but you're right. There's other guys, Whittington, Mumfield, Xavier Smith, uh, maybe somebody else I'm forgetting about. But there's other options there if Tutu doesn't step up. But he's a burner, and I mean that's what they
Right.
want.
Yeah. But that's the thing too, is like they don't use him as a guy that can stretch the field. They use him more, and we'll see. I mean, especially with the 11 personnel. I'm talking about 11 personnel, Gilbert. Will we finally see some 12 and 13 personnel formations this season? And you look at that tight end room, and I get excited about this tight end room because this is the deepest that room has been under McVay since McVay became the Rams head coach. You look at Tyler Higbee, Terrence Ferguson, Kobe Parkinson, Davis Allen is another guy that's been making plays in training camp. So I'm like, McVay keeps teasing the 12 and 13 personnel, and I'm like, are we finally going to get it? Because honestly, like it makes so much sense, especially if you went out and spent a second round pick on Terrence Ferguson.
Yeah, it's tricky because if Sean McVay's goal for a while has been to get like a very talented, pass catcher tight end, one that focuses more in the passing game than a blocking game. We all know that they tried going up for Brock Bowers in 24, and that didn't work out. I think there were some connections to, was it Colston Loveland or was it Tyler Warren? I forget which one they
I
wanted.
think it was Colston Loveland.
So one of those two. So that tells
Yeah.
me they really want a tight end who could do pretty much everything and be more of a weapon in the passing game. So that to me kind of shows me they still want to be 11 personnel. They want somebody who could do everything. And I think for a long time, Tyler Higbee did that, pretty well. He just wasn't the game changer in terms of the passing game. And I think that's what they really want. So maybe it becomes Terrence Ferguson and it just becomes Ferguson, uh, you know, Puka and Devontae that kind of run the show, and then Tutu Atwell just go run deep and create some opportunities for the other guys. If somebody's gonna shadow you and follow you deep, like they gotta respect you, right? So
Yep.
that's the one defender you move away. Or maybe you're onto something, Vic. Maybe it is okay, Tutu, just kind of play in base and then get out of here when we're gonna move to a 12 personnel. Here's $10 million for your trouble. And then yeah, you go two tight end sets, and you have Puka and Devontae. So that definitely
Yep.
you could do it. And you got Kyron
Yep.
Williams who could help you out of the backfield too. So and I know we know that McVay really loves Higbee, but he's older too. And then Ferguson is also a rookie. You don't know how much you're going to get. So I think maybe it's more about, okay, how advanced is Ferguson? How healthy is Higbee before they start doing that? But you're right. If they have the option, they've created something here to not be so predictable. And I think it was my colleague Albert Breer was talking about the 49ers and how they have to reinvent themselves because everybody does a Kyle Shanahan scheme. Everybody runs a Shanahan running scheme. Everybody's doing the same thing over and over again. Well, now it's your turn to zag or whatever, zig or zag. You have to be different. And same thing with Sean McVay. People know his principles, his foundations, and what he does well with 11 personnel. So maybe you're right. Maybe you're onto something where it's kind of 2023 where they went into more of this gap scheme for the running game, and that helped out. Maybe something different in 25, and maybe it is a 12 personnel.
Yeah, and I forget who it was outside of listening to Cooper Cup and how they changed the game in 2017 when he came in, and the formations that they were doing and how they were able to have every eh, they were able to attack every defense until the defenses kind of figured out what they were doing, and so then they needed to kind of change things. And someone said, I saw this recently, I don't know why I'm forgetting about it, but who it was, they were talking about how every year you're gonna see elements of football where you go back to the basics, right? We're gonna see smash mouth football. We're starting to see it with a lot of these coaches like Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh,
Mhm.
where they're just like, look, at the end of the day, if you have power football that and you have the guys in the trenches, if you can't stop me, it's gonna be a long day. And I feel like eventually, Sean McVay is gonna make that. He's gonna continue to evolve his offense, and it's gonna be geared towards having like a 12 personnel 13. I keep thinking about like, and I know these names are gonna kind of irritate some people, but if you look at the Patriots with those two tight end sets back in the day with Gronk and I won't name the other person who was involved, but you look at those and how successful they were with Tom Brady. That kind of stuff, especially if you're able to run the ball and you're able to kind of scheme things up, I think will help this team, especially if you don't have Matthew Stafford at the beginning of the season, Gilbert.
The thing that's weird about that is that every time somebody wants to talk about 12 personnel and two tight ends, they always bring up the Patriots from 10 years ago, or is it
Yep.
14, 15 years ago? It's like, why don't more teams do it? And maybe it's part of it is like you don't want to invest too much into the tight end position because wide receivers are so damn expensive. And maybe part of it is a copycat lead, like because people want to follow what Sean McVay has done the last few years, where you have three wide receivers, and that's pretty much been the norm. Is the three wide receivers. So maybe I'm blanking on somebody who's really invested on the tight end position or really relied on it heavily. But it's hard for me to remember. So I'm sure there's somebody out there, but for some reason people don't do it. And I wonder what it is. Why don't people? Is it just about the money and you want wide receivers? Is it who knows? Maybe the Raiders tried something different this year because they have Brock Bowers and he's their best option. Maybe Michael Mayer helps out. Who knows? Maybe they're the only team that comes to mind right now with the two with
Well,
12
the
personnel.
if you look at the Bears too, they have
Yeah,
uh
Komet,
Loveland and Komet. I
good
mean,
point.
you're starting to see it. The
Yeah,
the Lions. I mean, you're starting to see more of a commitment with more tight ends, and we'll see. I mean, what needs to happen though, Gilbert, is that someone needs to do it, and they need to be successful with it.
yeah,
And I think part of the pushback as to why you don't see it as much is because defenses are really good at being able to counter everything that you can do with the two tight end set, especially if you have whether we've seen a lot of these teams run these dime packages and they run nickels, and so they have a lot of tweener guys, and that's the other evolution too, Gilbert. Like I just saw that Jamal Adams is playing linebacker, and that's because they want to be faster, they want to be able to cover a lot of these tight ends for that reason, because you're starting to see that those two tight end sets are coming, and it's just you want to be prepared and be able to have the athletes out there to be able to cover
yeah.
two tight
Maybe,
end sets.
yeah, the Steelers could be another one. Jonnu Smith and Pat Fryermuth.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so there is something there, and the Chiefs don't necessarily have two great tight ends, but they're the big part of them winning two Super Bowls and going to three in a row was Travis Kelsey was a number one option. So there's a blueprint in place to be like, hey, it's okay if your tight end is making these plays here. You can still win games. And that was after the Tyreek Hill trade. And okay, now it's Kelsey for sure. And they evolved and they had guys like Noah Gray. Like you don't have to be like
Noah
think
Gray's the guy. Yeah, I was
yeah,
thinking number 84. I was like, I think you're sleeping on Noah Gray. Like
yeah.
I
I
was
don't
just trying to
I
think
don't
of
know
his
if he's gonna
name.
be a guy. I like Noah Gray. I think he's a reliable player. But I don't know if he's ever gonna get to that point. And people talk about I'll just say Hernandez and Gronk. Like he's
Right.
not gonna get to that point. But yeah, it's something where you don't have to have two stars. I mean, that's why it's hard for me to remember. If you have somebody who's reliable, Noah Gray was really stepping up when Kelsey was pretty gassed last year. Let's not forget about that. So it's a good point there. It's just you know would you rather have Noah Gray or Cole Kmet? Like I'd rather have Cole Kmet. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's about talent and then also where you end up. So that's kind of my point. Is sometimes it's okay to have your tight end be the number one option. That won't be the case with the Rams, but there is this evolution of okay, tight ends have to be more involved in very unique ways.
Yeah, and I agree, and we'll see. I feel like kind of like what we saw the shift with the linebackers the last couple of years, especially once you started seeing a lot of these coordinators be able to use them wisely. I feel like you're starting to see like the Colts came to mind too with the whole tight end thing. They've been trying to they've been drafting tight ends and trying to develop them too, and they just haven't been able to hit on them like
Yeah,
they want to. So and now they have one in Tyler Warren. So we'll see how that goes. We have one comment here from Mike Ormond. This says, I like Hoyt. Too bad he left. Reader should have gone. Troy Reader
yeah,
is a special teams guy. He was He was thrown into the fire. It's not his fault. He's a special teams guy. They should have never. He shouldn't have been the starter. Omar Spates wasn't ready to be a starter, so I feel bad for Troy Reader because he gets a lot of hate, but it wasn't on him. Honestly, he was just
Yeah.
thrown into the fire. All right,
Yeah.
Gilbert. Before we go, we're counting down. We're gonna be, but now we're officially back, Gilbert. We're gonna be here every week now. The plan is to have a preview episode, and then we won't do a preview episode for preseason. There's no reason, but I think we'll have one show during preseason a week, and then once the season starts, we'll have an episode, a preview episode, and then we'll have a post game show, depending on our availability, where Gilbert's and all that. But you're gonna be at the joint practice tomorrow between the Cowboys and the Rams. So, just lastly here, what is the position you're going to be watching during joint practices tomorrow for the Rams? Is there something you want to that you're still kind of skeptical
Yeah.
about? Is there something that is intriguing you about this team that you kind of like? Because this is where Sean McVay likes to be able to kind of show some things, uh, uh, and be able to get a little bit more of where he's at with this team offensively,
Yeah.
defensively, and then on special teams.
No, I'm glad you asked this question because we didn't talk about the secondary enough. So I am definitely intrigued about the secondary because the secondary was pretty bad last year. They got torched pretty often, and I was in Arizona last week, and they kept talking about, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. was inconsistent, but those two Rams games, he was very good. So,
Yep.
whenever you need a get right game, it was a Rams secondary last year, and I don't need to go through all the names. We remember Jameson Williams going off in week 1, but they
Yep.
still haven't done much in the secondary. But I want to see the safety rotation because I'm okay with Quentin Lake being the star. I think Quentin Lake was a nice addition. Or he kind of stumbled on the role last year, and they're kind of like, you know what? Yeah, why not? Quentin Lake, why not? Let's see what he has. Can he get better in that role? I want to see that. There's a lot of love for Cameron Kitchens. Like, he's one of the most underrated rookies from last year, and I get it. He wasn't playing as well as Jared Verse, and he wasn't, a first round pick. But I think Cameron Kitchens was pretty good. Is he more than just a ball hawk? Can he do more to help out in the passing game? Because we remember the pick six in Seattle. That was great. So it's always good to be a ball hawk and be in the right place to make plays that are game changing plays. But those are so limited. Like, you get maybe 5 to 7 plays like that every season. You need to be consistent in the passing game. I want to see that against George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. If you want to be put to the test with your secondary, do you have enough? That's a scrimmage. You see it right there. And they're going to be trying new things too, because they have George Pickens, who's new in Dallas. So
And they got a
I
good
just gave
tight
you
end
three.
in Ferguson too. Sorry, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you got a lot of weapons to deal with against this Dallas team. So, and I just mentioned the safeties, like Cam Curl too. That's the other one. But can Darius Williams hold up? Can who's the other guy? I'm already blanking on. Kobe Durant. It's
Kobe-
not a lot of options. And Akilo Witherspoon. It's probably gonna be Akilo Witherspoon and Darius Williams. Like, what year is it? These guys are
Yeah.
starting cornerbacks, and that's very concerning. So if you lose the wide receiver battle, it's gonna be up to the safety trio, which I like. I'm high on the safeties. Can you guys make that work? Being the Rams, can they make that balance work with the so-so cornerback but very talented safety group? How can you blend that together?
Yeah. And I mean, do you take the next step, under this Chris Shula defense? I think that's also something to kind of look at. I'm like I said, every person that I've listened to that has talked about this secondary, I think you're just being hopeful that they're better in this. I think the what you're relying on, honestly, Gilbert, is that front four is able to get
Yeah.
enough push to be able to kind of disrupt the quarterback enough for those, so the secondary doesn't have to cover for as long, because we've mentioned how skeptical we've been about that secondary. I love their safeties. Their safeties are, as you mentioned, Quinn Lake playing the start position. I mean, he's had, I think, 3 interceptions in training camp. He's been all over the place. Kobe Durant. He's kind of been moved around as well, but you kind of want to see him take that next step too. And as you said, Darius Williams and you Akilos Witherspoon. They're guys that are getting up there in age and they can get burned, and we've seen that the last couple of years. So you just want to see this secondary be able to have good communication, because outside of that, you're just honestly relying on that front four to be able to create pressure. Because if you don't, we see what happens against the Cardinals. And honestly, I can't wait to kind of have a conversation with you about that Cardinals, because going back to the whole tight end, that the reason that Marvin Harrison struggled, and we have a comment here that has to do with, are there any sleepers to look out for? We'll get to that comment, but that offense was run through their tight end in the Cardinals, and part of the reason they struggle is because they really didn't feature Marvin Harrison Jr., and I think that was a mistake, and I think hopefully they I guess not for the Rams' sake, but if you're a Cardinals fan, they fixed that, because that offense is very intriguing to me, Gilbert. I'll be honest, if we're talking about fantasy, is that Cardinals fans, and I can't wait to pick your brain in terms of what you learned from it, because and hopefully
Yeah.
we can have Eric Williams, because I'm very interested to kind of get you guys' feedback on the rest of the NFC West, and just from what I've been hearing, I think this is going to be a really tough division. I know that outside of the outside, like the teams are going to face outside are not as good, but inside the division, those battles are gonna. I don't. It's gonna be hard to come away with 3 or 4 wins in this division. I feel like, Gilbert.
Yeah, and just real quick before we get out of here and then get to
Yeah.
some of these comments, like I'll kind of give you the quick rundown. Like, yeah, any team. I feel like any team could win this division, and I feel
Yes.
like any team could end up last. And I like the Rams to win the division, but also the Stafford question mark is just really opening the door for somebody else to win this division. Like if Stafford's not healthy, like I was like, what's gonna happen here? So, uh, and then with Seattle, I just can't get behind, as you know, Sam Darnold. I can't
Yeah.
get behind that.
But that defense, Gilbert. I
They they
mean,
they can't get on the same page, but I think Mike McDonald can maybe do it. They're talented. I'll give them
yeah,
I ranked Seattle maybe top 5 for some of the best teams, one of the best teams with
defensive.
under 25 talent, and they really made all the players from the Russell Wilson trade be legit players, but they can't get it together. And now you're asking your quarterback to be new. You have a new play call because of the last play call supposedly couldn't call plays. Like I'm just not gonna count of everything being together this year. I just can't do it. But I like
Like
them
I
a lot.
said, not now you're speaking my language here, Gilbert, because like that's the other thing too with Seattle is that the way they set up that offense is that it's, how usually you center around certain players. They centered it around their offensive coordinator, who they just hired, which is crazy to me too. Like I don't think I've
Sounds
ever
like a
seen
mess.
that.
But I
Huh?
don't know. I can't give them the benefit of the doubt. Like I don't know Mike
Yeah,
McDonald like that. I like if it was like somebody else, like McVay, like yeah, well, I kind of screwed that one up. We'll fix it. Like okay, I believe
yeah,
you. But that's they're boom or bust. I want to be
right.
quick here, but boom or bust is Seattle for sure. Consistent and reliable is the Rams. And the same thing with the 49ers, but their defense is so young, it's hard for me to trust that defense. But you
That
got Fred Warner
secondary
and
is
Nick
just like
Bosa.
the Rams, right?
Yeah, and it feels like 2023, right? Like you kind of have a reset year. You got some familiar names, but you're very
Yep.
young. And then lastly, like I'm still high on the Cardinals because they feel like a good stock that was just a little too slow for me last year. And I'm like, come on, take off already. And I'm like, am
Yeah.
I gonna jump off now? Like their only problem is, Vic, can they take another step forward on the offense? It's the same offense. They added so much talent defensively. I think the scheme is good with Jonathan Gannon. So
Yeah.
I'm sticking with my stock. So that's kind of my quick rundown of the NFC West, and eventually we have a month to probably break them down
Yeah,
all
and
4. But
that's
that's
why
my
that's
quick
why I
rundown.
want to get Eric on, because you guys both cover, you've been doing the tour of the NFC West, and then that's his beat is the both the AFC West and the NFC West. And and with the Cardinals, I think the biggest question mark comes down, like their whole team comes down to Kyler Murray. Is
Oh yeah,
he gonna take over or not? And that's and then we have Michael Armenta here. He says, as of now, who wins the NFC? I think we're both on the same page here. Right now, it's
yeah.
the Rams.
I don't feel
Ask
good
us in
about it.
about a month once we know more about what's
Yeah.
going on with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a safe bet, especially with the Stafford injury. But then,
Yeah.
even if you have a healthy Stafford, like I laid out, like the three other teams have so much uh room for growth, but every team has a real concern. And why do I give Kyler Murray the benefit of the doubt and not Sam Darnold? So that's something I need to ask myself. Like, why
Yeah.
am I doing that? Why am I going to hitch my wagon to Kyler Murray again? So these are
Because
all
I
things.
think you trust the offensive coordinator in Arizona a little bit more in
Yeah,
Petsing than you do,
Kubiak.
yeah, Kubiak, Clint Kubiak. So
And
maybe
I
that's what it is.
Yeah, I trust Shanahan and to figure it out. And everybody talks about their easy schedule, but they have so many young guys defensively they're really relying on. But hey, maybe Robert Sala. That's the other thing. I think Robert Sala. People are not talking enough about him being back
Bryce
as a
Huff.
defensive
I mean,
play
I
caller.
think I mean he's if anybody's gonna fix Bryce Huff, he had him, so he knows what to
Yeah,
do with him. All right, Gilbert. Last question here. I know we got to go. I know it's early, but is there any fantasy sleepers to look out for, Gilberto?
I shouldn't out myself, Victor, because we were in the same league. But honestly, I hadn't even thought about like it's a different game. It's fantasy football and real football, and I've been so stuck in real football that I need to switch my brain to fantasy. So
Right,
you want to give a couple out, Vic, and I could write them down from you. But
right.
I'll just say this: I always go for the guys who were a lot of hype in the rookie year, but they didn't really do much. And people are like,
Yeah.
we're at on that guy. Like, look for the second year surge, and maybe MHJ could be one of those guys.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is up there. I think that's someone that, like he's not getting talked about like, someone like Malik Neighbors. I'll say I one of the things I always do, Gilbert, is I always try to make sure you leave the draft with a rookie running back,
Oh yeah,
and take one in the middle to late rounds. And one of them right now, and I don't know if you agree, is Caleb Johnson from the
oh yeah,
Steelers.
yeah.
That's someone that I would target. Make sure that uh, do you want to let them know where you finish, Gilbert?
I think I finished in the consolation championships. I wasn't last.
You
So
didn't finish
what's the
last,
what's the
or
second
you?
place in
Yeah,
the consolation game? Like, am I
yeah.
seventh or no eighth? I'm eighth.
Yeah, you were like 7th or 8th. I don't know if you beat Alonso, but you
Yeah,
were
he
like
was
in there.
7th, I was 8th, and
Yeah,
Vic, the more you talk about how to draft, I'm kicking myself because I got it right.
you did.
I took Bucky Irving, and then I
Yeah,
freaking dropped him because I got pissed off. I took Joe Burrow in the 12th round, dropped him because I got pissed off after week
yeah,
1 or 2, and I just don't have the patience, and you
right.
do, and that's why you do better than I do.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of things too. You right now, especially depends on what kind of format you have. Whether it's a it's a PPR league or if you're in standard. It also depends on your league too. That's one of the things I always tell people is like, you barely make the playoffs.
That's why I said, Vic,
No,
take it away because that's why
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't been studying like I should.
Yeah, so but we'll get more into it. I'm sure we'll have, especially if you're locked onto the combos on the beat. I'm sure we'll have one of the footballers on again. We've had them, I think, 3 years in a row. We've had one of the hosts of the
Yeah.
footballers. So we'll get all some experts on here. We also had what's his name from NBC. Now he was with the NFL Network, Michael Fabiano.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so keep it locked to Compass on the Beat, House of Horns. What's the show schedule this week,
Yeah,
Gilbert?
we got Compass on the Beat on Wednesday. Um, so check that out. I don't know the What's Up Boat schedule, Angel. I gotta hit up Fernando for that, but definitely Wednesday. And I don't our schedule is gonna be pretty much all over the place for August, but I feel like once football season comes, we'll have a nice routine. But just expect for the next month at least one Compass show, one House of Horns show, and probably one What's Up Boat show. I know Dan and Dago's pretty busy this time of year, but I think we're in that period where we're all doing one show from the 3 shows that we usually do per week. We just don't have a routine yet, and I think September, obviously, we'll get that down. It's
Yeah, and then we
preseason for
got
us too.
we got our big show before the season.
Yeah.
That's the Carne Asada show. We're still working out the details as to
Mhm.
when that's going to be. So keep in lock. We'll make sure we put out a flyer out there for people to know. So we'll start promoting that as well. But yeah, thank. It's good to be back. I kind of started geeking out here towards the end here when we started talking about all the other teams because I mean we're getting closer to the NFL season being here, and some of the preseason stuff you don't really get to see some of this stuff. So I think the joint practice is going to be cool. I'm a little jealous of Gilbert because he's going to go get to see the Cowboys and Rams tomorrow,
Don't
and
be. I got to
we'll
drive
see.
2 hours.
Oh yeah. What's up for the driving part?
Oxnard is so
But
damn far. I need a plane for that one, man. Jesus.
yeah, there should be a flight from Long
Oh,
Beach to
I'd rather
Oxnard
fly
for
to
you.
Vegas or Arizona any day, especially if I'm going at a Long Beach or Santa Ana. Like, if it's not LAX, that's the thing too. If it's LAX, then I don't want
Yeah,
to do it. But it's one of those two airports. I'd rather take the 45-minute flight to Santa Clara too than freaking drive to Oxnard. But I'll get there.
yeah. But yeah, keep it locked. We'll be sharing some videos. Whatever Gilbert sends me, I'll make sure to upload it to House of Horn. So keep it locked. Like I said, we're gonna be back now every week. We're back now till whenever the Ram season ends, and then we'll do, whether it's in the Super Bowl, we'll be here for you guys. So yeah, stay locked in. It's good to be back, Gilbert. It's good to be talking Rams football again.
Yeah, definitely a good show. I know people are probably like, oh, they have a show out of nowhere. Thanks for the heads up. So sorry about that. But like we mentioned, we are back on a once a week schedule. And then eventually, when September rolls around, probably twice a week, game preview and game recap. So expect that during the season.
All right, go ahead and get us out of here, Gilbert. It was
Yeah.
good to be back talking Rams football, just football in general, and can't wait for our next show.
Yeah. Thank you, Angel. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jorge. Daniel, Henry Camacho. Good to see you back, sir. And ESG. Appreciate all the comments. Henry, right at the buzzer, getting a comment in there. So yeah, we're back. I honestly, quick story. I watched The Hangover on the plane because I had nothing else to watch. I'm like, what else? Whatever. I'll watch a Hangover. It's funny. It's like we're back the whole time in the car when they found their homie Doug.
Yeah,
So that's us right now. We're back. So
we're back.
yeah, we're back, baby, and better than ever. So time to get going. Nos vamos, pues. Vámonos.